The Starr and D'Amico Show is brought to you by cheapesttshirts.ca. If you're looking for quality gear without overpaying, shop cheapesttshirts.ca. Huge selection for men, women, and kids. Tees, hoodies, headwear, bags, and more. Proud Montreal business. Order today, ship today, delivery tomorrow. That's cheapesttshirts.ca. Local, fast, and affordable. Brought to you by instacustoms.com. Do you need custom gear from a local Montreal business? Instacustoms.com has you covered. Custom shirts, hoodies, hats, and more made your way. Fast turnaround, great quality, and proudly Montreal-based. Check out instacustoms.com. Brought to you by Cabletel. For trusted alarm systems in Quebec and Eastern Ontario, choose Cabletel. Over 20 years of expert installation and top-tier protection for homes and businesses. Check out Cabletel.com. Email them info@Cabletel.com. It's Cabletel. Peace of mind you can count on. Brought to you by Morella's Steakhouse. Looking for an unforgettable night out? Morella's Steakhouse on Highway 132. It's just 15 minutes from Montreal, serving up premium cuts and bold flavors, and no tax on your bill. Book your table tonight at morellassteakhouse.ca. Taste excellence tonight. Brought to you by Little Bear. Give your pet the best with Little Bear Pet Supply. It's a proudly family-owned business here in Montreal for over 30 years. Chuck, Evie, and their all-star staff have you taken care of with all the top brands at the best prices, and they really care for your pets. Shop online at littlebearonline.com or visit them on St. Catherine across from Westmount Square. It's Little Bear Pet Supply. Brought to you by McLean's Pub. Head over to McLean's Pub, 1210 Peel Street in the heart of downtown Montreal. Great food, cold drinks, and big games on all the screens. McLean's Pub, good times and great company. There's Marco D'Amico. I'm Shaun Starr. Welcome to the aftermath of the preliminary round for Team Canada at the Men's Olympic Hockey Tournament in Milano Cortina. And Canada sweeps the board as many predicted, outscoring their opposition by a margin of 20-3. Marco, mission accomplished for the Canadian men after 3 games. Is that fair?
Absolutely. I mean, this was expected. I don't think anybody really had a worry in this regard in terms of Canada coming out 3-0 in the group stages. I think now it's just going to be them, kind of waiting into that semifinal to see who it is they face. Because really, it's the semifinal and the final. Everyone wants to see what's going to happen there. Quarterfinals will be interesting. There will be some matchups, but I think everyone kind of expected Canada, the U.S. To be some of those teams to be able to go on to those finals. So to the semifinals, I enjoyed it. To me, I think there was a lot that stood out in a really good way. I think, again, right off the top, Connor McDavid breaking the record for the most amount of points by a Canadian-born player at this tournament in the history of Team Canada, I think is absolutely insane to do in just 3 games. He's got up to two more left. I think this is going to be a very interesting tournament for him.
I want to talk about Macklin Celibrini and the teenage phenom and the tournament he's had 3 games in, but
Yeah.
Tip of the cap, bro, to 87. I mean, he's the leader. He's still like a hockey god in the eyes of his teammates. And you saw the reaction in the handshake line. All the French players just like what I would imagine, if I had to guess, honored to play against you, moving on. But 6 points through 3 games for 87 and still has a hand, very much so, doesn't he, in terms of where he's at this point of his career.
Just the best two-way center
Yeah.
for Team Canada, just overall. I mean, the combination of him, Mark Stone, and Mitch Marner is just an overall 5-on-5 cheat code. Like the chances for versus the chances against are just gross. And again, all 3 of those guys, and tip of the cap, especially to Mark Stone in this game. Very strong defensive game from Mark Stone. I love that line on both ends of the ice. All 3 of those players are hyper intelligent. Again, Crosby's been fantastic, but I am just really intrigued on how John Cooper is going to move ahead with that top line, because Macklin Celibrini and Connor McDavid seem to be one of the most dynamic international duos that we've seen since Mario Lemieux and Wayne Gretzky linked up. It's really wild to watch those 2 guys go.
Nathan MacKinnon, we're watching this. We're watching him play through 3 games, and listen, I mean, he takes a shot from behind the net, down low, forces Tom Wilson. We'll get into Tom Wilson dropping the mitts there. It doesn't look like chances are very low. There's going to be supplemental discipline after the fight. He gets the game misconduct, but odds seem quite low that he's going to miss the next game for Team Canada. We'll wait and see for that judgment. But beyond that, is Nathan MacKinnon one of those players that's maybe like Sidney Crosby was back in the day, not the easiest to have as a line mate, not the easiest to have as your center?
Yeah, well, Tom Wilson's the one that got into a fight, and I
Yeah,
think we'll
but it was
we'll,
MacKinnon who
we'll
got hit, right?
Yeah, after the subsequent shift,
Yeah,
and obviously, the French player was twice that he went high and tried to apologize, and
yeah.
unfortunately didn't roll with Tom Wilson. I felt like this was an awkward game for Nathan MacKinnon. I enjoy him as a hockey player, I do, but I think everyone can kind of agree that at 5-on-5, he was looking for that chemistry. They were playing him at the end of periods back on that top line, and they looked fantastic together. But as a center, like, he was good in the faceoff dot. I didn't like that line defensively much this game. I mean, the first goal was Colton Parayko's fault, but
Hmm.
I felt like they were way too high in the zone. The center should have been much lower on that in that play, and they got caught, and that's how France opened up the scoring on their end. I thought that the game flowed much better in the third period. I thought Hagel, MacKinnon, Suzuki really kind of started getting going in that at the end of the third period. They were cycling well, they were finding each other on the ice, they were moving with more pace. And I felt in McKinnon's case, his game, he actually slowed down a little bit because I thought he was going a little too fast. And sometimes, and that's how good of a player he is. Sometimes when Nathan MacKinnon goes, top speed, it's almost impossible for anybody who hasn't played with him for a while to keep up and to follow suit. So I think that Suzuki and Hagel really kind of started to find their legs with him in that third period, and you saw it on Hagel's goal, like great 3-on-2 rush up the ice, able to take advantage, and Hagel was able to just bury that and could have had more. I think he hit 2 posts, did Hagel. So they really
Yeah.
kind of started to find their rhythm. And I think for Team Canada, you absolutely need that line to get going because it's the only line that John Cooper really kind of had trouble playing, like really kind of deploying. By the end of the second period, they were being deployed like a fourth line, and they would skip their because there would be a parade of penalties. Whenever a penalty would come in, that line would skip its role in the rotation, and you'd play the other three lines first. So I found that intriguing. I think John Cooper has a lot of patience. Obviously, believes in those three guys, and is going to keep, especially Hagel, and is going to keep trying that combination. But I think what we saw in the third period is very good news for Team Canada, because when you're going to start playing a team like Sweden, or you're going to start playing a team like Team USA, probably in the final, I would assume that you're going to need all three of those lines scoring for you and all cylinders, because the United States themselves are quite deep in their own top nine.
What about Captain Nick Suzuki of the Montreal Canadiens? Defensively, he seems to be still, I mean, such a smart, situationally intelligent player. Offensively, though, what do you make of his 3 games with Team Canada?
I I don't think that he's in his comfort zone when it comes to creating offense on the wing. I
Right.
don't. I think right now, if you're going to use Nick Suzuki, it's going to be in a defensive situation on the wing until he gets used to being on the outside making those plays. And I think the little chip plays are interesting. I liked what I saw from Nick Suzuki in the third period with that line. I thought they played quite well, and they spent a lot of time in the offensive zone. They drew a couple of penalties, had dangerous chances. They had a goal as well. Nick Suzuki, the fourth man on that goal, didn't get an assist, but looked good. I much preferred that third period than any other period from that line in this tournament. So right off the bat, that's what I think. They all three need to elevate at 5-on-5, I feel, in order to be effective. But the combination of Hagel and Suzuki at even strength defensively, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. There was the first goal where they were on the ice with Pareko. Wasn't a really big fan of how that turned out, but that was a double. That was a very rough shift for Pareko, who causes the turnover and then misses the defensive assignment on that first goal. But outside of that, I thought this game was all Canada and all positive. Nick Suzuki defensively, I thought was great. There was one cross ice pass that I didn't really like I believe it was the second period. Other than that, defensively, he was always the first one back, really strong on the forecheck, really good at his takeaways. I think he had 3 takeaways in this game, if I'm not mistaken, if not 4 by my notes. And again, just very strong in the neutral zone. Just, he looks like a defensive minded oriented player, which we're not used to, right? We're all used to seeing the offensive Nick Suzuki. Well, this is the defensive side of his game that John Cooper is leaning on him a little bit more for than for him to produce offense, especially when you have Macklin Celibrini and Connor McDavid firing on all cylinders.
Speaking of Macklin Celibrini, I mean, what can we say? I mean, John Cooper goes with MacKinnon, McDavid, Celibrini. Celibrini scores almost immediately. Against the French, he goes with MacKinnon, McDavid, Celibrini. Celibrini with the penalty shot, converts, the youngest player to do so, the third Canadian player at the Olympics to draw a penalty. I mean, what else can we say about this phenom? We don't get to see him as much. Plays for San Jose, obviously, but I mean, what a 3 games, what an Olympic debut for such a young player.
Well, he'll be here in March. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But I again, 19 years old to be able to play the way he's playing is absolutely insane. Like if he continues to play this way into the medal rounds, like you're gonna have a serious conversation about who is the real MVP here, him or McDavid,
Right.
because it's incredible how when those two are on the ice, their forecheck is relentless. Like he is so good at being able to zone in on a player and create so much pressure that they have to double think it, and it's over. He's going to come in, stick lift you, and he's gone the other way. And again, we talk about being able to match speed with speed. You look at McDavid's goal, how Celebrini was able to go up the rush with him and then saucer him onto a breakaway. Like just elite hockey IQ, elite talent. And in my honest opinion, I said this at his in 2024. I didn't think he was going to be this good, this quick. But what I said in 2024 was he reminded me of Crosby with wheels.
Huh.
Like he's a faster Crosby. That's the way I've always described him. And maybe the points are now starting to come with the comp, right? Because I didn't think he was going to be like an 120 point player in his sophomore year, and that's exactly what he's trending towards, which is bonkers. We haven't seen that in forever. So I've enjoyed his tournament. I think this is only going to make him better, and I think what this also cements is San Jose's time at the bottom of the standings are effectively over. He's too good, and he's just going to keep pulling that team above their weight class. He is an absolute gem.
Jordan Binnington gets the call, his second game in this tournament. Logan Thompson obviously got the middle game. But, I mean, France scored twice. They had 14 shots on goal. We spoke about this after the Canada win against Czechia, and they follow that up. Logan Thompson and how he performed. We talked about Dom Lucian and the Athletic making a pretty strong case that Logan Thompson should kind of be the guy. I mean, I'll ask you the same question I asked you the last time we recapped a Canada win at these games. Is it still Binnington moving forward as we get now to the serious stage of the Olympic hockey tournament?
Yeah, you want my personal sense? I did not like the body language that I saw from Jordan Binnington in this game.
Interesting.
I didn't. Like,
what didn't you like? What was it?
Well, first of all, the second goal, the slap shot from the circle that he doesn't stop.
Yeah.
Like, how are you not tracking that? And there were a couple of goals, there were a couple of chances that didn't go in where Binnington was just like not tracking it or didn't see it. And it just speaks to the overall insecurity that a lot of Canadiens fans have with him in net. It's not that he can't get the job done. He just doesn't look very confident doing it, which is ironic considering his personality, right? He's a very, exuberant individual.
Engaged guy. Yes.
Yeah. But at the same time, like you have to stop a lot of these shots, and a point blank slapper on like from the short side at the circle. Like to me, I was just, you have to stop that. If that happens in a medal game, that could be the difference between winning a medal and going home. Like that's huge, right? So there was that. I didn't like the first goal from him either. That was the juiciest of juicy rebounds, especially from a point shot. So again, like we're analyzing minute details. It's a 10-2 win, right? They still won the game, but I'm just worried that when the chips are on the table again, like you just want to make sure he's engaged, right? 2 goals in 2 games, not the end of the world when you look at it, from the top and you don't analyze this game in a nutshell. But again, I am 150% convinced that Cooper is going to go right back to Binnington in the semifinals. I'm not worried about that whatsoever.
I'm not worried about Team Canada reading their press clippings. The fact that they ran the table, the
Mhm.
fact that Marco they scored 20 goals, 20-3 the margin, so a plus 17 goal differential. I mean, do you get the sense that this team, I hate to use the word, but they're humble, that they're not captivated by how good they've looked offensively, that the goal going into this wasn't to run the prelims. The goal was gold. What your
Yeah.
thoughts on how they've played and not getting caught up in all of that?
I mean, in a tournament like this where the tiebreaker is goals for, you have no choice but to run up the table a little bit, right? Like
Yes.
it's understanded. And I don't necessarily feel you got to feel for some of these teams like Italy losing 11 nothing. You know, those men had families, ladies and gentlemen. Like what are we doing here? But it's understandable because it's a tiebreaker. And it's a tiebreaker even when you get to seeding. And the reason why, for example, Canada ran the score up as much as they did 10-2 in this game could have been even worse. France had some key saves in there. The reason why they did that is because they're trying to finish first overall and get the best possible seed in the semifinal. And now with a 10-2 victory, the United States needs to win by 10 goals
Yeah.
against Germany, in my opinion, a far harder opponent than France right now. And so that'll be a very interesting thing, especially considering that Germany lost to Latvia. You best believe that they're going to try their absolute best to not only win this game against the US,
Mm-hmm.
but ensure that it is as tight as possible.
So wrapping it up here, Canada runs the table. We gave you the numbers. Connor McDavid makes history. Sidney Crosby with 6 points. MacKinnon Celibrini on 4 goals. How you feeling moving forward with
Well,
this
there's
team?
Tom Wilson that we absolutely need to discuss because that was risky on his end.
Well, it was, and he was, upon further review, I thought for a second when he got tangled up, I thought that, oh, he's going to hold on to the gloves. I was saying, don't drop him. But upon further review on the replay, he dropped him pretty quick.
Yeah.
And as was outlined, I think Elliot Friedman afterwards outlined that it's unlikely that there's going to be supplemental discipline for the man who finished the game with a Gordie Howe hat trick.
Yes, exactly. So it's not an automatic suspension,
No.
but it opens up the possibility for
Yeah.
suspension, which needless at this point, right? You're winning as much as you were. And, obviously it's cool to have a Gordie Howe hat trick at the Olympics. You can barely ever say that.
Yeah.
But the idea is like, why would you do that
I
and
know.
miss a semifinal game? And hopefully this doesn't become a problem in the finals or against Sweden or against USA. Like you want to avoid that at all costs. So to me, you got to be careful, and especially with a player like Wilson, who's for better or for worse, a very emotional player, plays with his heart on his sleeve. Especially with the way that they were roughhousing certain Canadian players like Nathan MacKinnon. You want to exact a certain level of revenge. Wilson fights. MacKinnon abuses a couple of players at the end of the third period, gets a roughing penalty. Like I get it, but you guys, that team has to lock in if they're going to be able to measure themselves up against the Sweden or the way Slovakia is playing, maybe Slovakia or Team USA. Like you have to be on it, and so I was a little concerned, but I was told by those in the know in Milan that it's unlikely that he faces any discipline whatsoever. Had he thrown, like, had there actually been like a full on fight, because it was more a wrestling match, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Had they started throwing, that's when they could have potentially had a suspension on your hands. But it was more a tussle than anything else.
Yeah, which again keeps the odds kind of low. And I know every forward player is important for Canada, but
Mhm.
Wilson, plays next to Connor McDavid. I mean, he's not being used, in a fourth line kind of role. Kind of an important player for Team Canada as we go deep in this tournament. So, I mean, you like what you've seen so far. They did what they set out to do. They run the table. They scored 20 goals. They got the goal differential. Very much lined up, in order to finish as the top seed here. I mean, as you outlined, what the Americans have to do. Which seems unlikely, which seems not impossible, but seems unlikely. that this is step one of what's to come for Team Canada. But anything that at all has maybe raised a flag about what to pay attention to, what to button up here as we wrap this up?
Well, I found Canada's defense a little shaky. I don't know what you thought. A lot of unnecessary turnovers, especially when it came to zone exits. That to me is something they're going to have to clean up if they're going to be, going up against teams that have dangerous counterattacks. That's
Mm-hmm.
the only thing. Everything else is beautifully positive. I mean, again, Celibrini and McDavid, dominant. Sidney Crosby, Sidney Crosby. I think that, watching Mitch Marner and Mark Stone, excellent. The fourth line, as we call it, with Horvat, Bennett, um, Reinhardt. I like that combination, and then them throwing in Seth Jarvis when necessary. I like that 4-player rotation. They're excellent, a perfect energy line. And I would say that if we get to a point where Nathan MacKinnon should go back up and play, with the first overall line with Celibrini and McDavid, I wouldn't even mind bumping Bo Horvat to the middle on the third line and having Hagel, Horvat, Suzuki. Because then you really have 3 lines that are outright defensive dominations, and then you have the first overall line that's just all gas, no brakes. I would like to see that, but only, in a nuclear situation.
Yeah. So here we go. I mean, it's been a fun three games in the prelims. Fun to see the skill, the instant chemistry, and that important step of closing out your group and getting what is a big advantage. I mean, they're going to get last change, and you're going to be able to adjust to that as we move forward. And listen,
no, those are massive.
absolutely,
And you have to talk about it. And like, the last change in these kinds of tournaments.
Yep.
Insanely massive. Not only do you get to choose which side, like when it comes to face-offs, right? Like that becomes super important as well. You don't get to choose the side, but you get to choose the player. You get last change. They're putting out a more of a defensive line. You put out your first line. Like there's so much that could be played in that. And when you think about how Team Canada won at the Four Nations, it was off a face-off in the offensive zone on a set play.
Yeah.
So having that last change, extremely important. There's still hockey to be played as of the moment of this recording. So we'll see what the U.S. does against Germany. But I think job well done for Team Canada at this point. And, I think what's going to be more enjoyable to me is now we have the true landscape for upsets in the quarterfinals. And I think that's going to be the most exciting part for me.
Let's go. By the way, the Canadian women are in action on Monday at 3:10. They're in semifinal play against Switzerland. The early game at 10:40. The American women will play Sweden, and then everything's shaping up to be a Canada-USA showdown for gold. On the men's side, the qualification playoff will begin on Tuesday next week, and then the men's playoff quarterfinals on Wednesday. Games from 6:10 all the way until 3:10 on a 4-game Wednesday. Again, that's the men's playoff quarterfinals from Italy, and we get set to a week from today. We'll be recapping the gold medal game and hopefully recapping Canada, gold draped around their neck, which, by the way, I'd be remiss. Shout out to Mikkel Kingsbury, the GOAT, for bringing home Canada's first gold medal at these games. Fantastic to see. I mean, if this is the end of his Olympic career, I mean, not much.
What a way to go out.
Better in that event.
Exactly. No, tip of the cap. And of course, to all the Canadian athletes doing well in Milan, tip of the cap, hard work pays off.
For sure. It's great. All right, brother. Hard work all week during these Olympics. No days off. Good stuff. And don't forget, be with us on Monday, tomorrow, as we'll have an interesting recap of Marco's one-on-one with one of the most underrated prospects. Marco had a chance to sit down with this player, and we'll dip into that and some Laval Rocket content as well, right here on Starr and D'Amico. Make sure to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Thanks, Marco.
Have a good day, everybody.